All right, a big day for Democrats across the country and in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The Democratic candidate there, Ralph Northam, he will be the next governor. The question now is, what does it mean going forward for the rest of the country? Joining us now, Republican Congressman Dave Brat of Virginia. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us. It wasn't just the governor's race, it was the lieutenant governor's race. It was the attorney general's race. It was all the races for the House of Delegates. This was a Democratic sweep by and large in your state. What happened?
Yeah, well, and so what's common to all those is we failed to nationalize the election. The Democrats showed up, nationalized the election, and I think we were running too much on state issues. Even at the state level, Virginia only grew at 0.6% GDP growth rate last year. That's not good. And yet 2/3 of people came out of the polls saying the economy's doing fine. And so we failed to message on the economy. The Democrats put in a $10 trillion tax increase up in D.C. 3 weeks ago. We're putting in tax cuts. We didn't message on that. Obamacare premiums are going out with 40% increases across the state. The Democrats are running on health care, but they're not running on Obamacare failure. And so we failed to message at the proper level, on the national level, and it turns out that's the key. It was health care last night. We failed, right? The Senate Republicans failed to pass a repeal and to lower the price of health care. We got to get that done. And then tax cuts, we got to get it done because it's a national referendum. And you're right, it affected all the downhill races. And so we've got to get our act together up here in the swamp any day now.
We've got to get our act together. Strong words. Would you agree with some other strong words from your fellow Republican from Virginia, Scott Taylor, who just said this morning on this network, this is a referendum on this administration?
It's a referendum. The administration has the agenda of lowering taxes, repealing Obamacare, getting rid of regulations, etc. The Senate did the face plant on the Obamacare repeal, right? So that's where the failure occurred. And so I always like to just tell it the way it is. The Senate failed on Obamacare repeal. Health care was the #1 issue. Well, and then the economy's #2, and tax cuts are up right now, so we better get that one through.
Is that a yes or no? Because you look at the exit poll numbers, twice as many people in Virginia came out to vote in part because of opposition to this president than in support of this president. So yes or no? Say it like it is. Referendum on this president or no?
It depends on what you mean by on the agenda, no. The agenda, I always deal in policy, not personality and all the drama.
On the man.
I don't think it's ever a matter of personality. Last night, the evidence was health care and the economy growth. Economy in Virginia is failing right now, and government jobs are tied to that economy. So it's staggering that Northern Virginia can go along with such low economic growth.
Congressman, another way to ask that is, do you think the president helped or hurt Republicans in Virginia?
We failed to, what I'm saying is we failed to nationalize it, right? It wasn't in play.
But the Democrats, to the extent that they nationalized it around the President of the United States. So we're asking you, it's not a trick question, it's a fairly simple one.
No,
did he help or hurt? Did he help or hurt Republicans in your state?
I wish the national would have come into play. We failed to capitalize on nationalizing the election, and that's why we lost. He should have run. Ed Gillespie, for instance, should have run closer to the president, you're saying? Yes, on health care, repeal of Obamacare, and on cutting taxes, which we're going to do for every American. Every average family in Virginia is going to get $1,200 back in their pockets. We didn't mention that. That's our plan, right? That's the Republican plan. It's the Republican platform. If you don't mention that, it's not good. And so we've got to do way better. We're doing no oversight hearings. We're not messaging on foreign policy, etc. We have a messaging problem, and we had an Obamacare faceplant in the Senate. We've got to correct that and move forward, and we failed to do that last night.
But Ed Gillespie did run on some of the issues, some of the cultural issues that have been most important and prominent to this president, like immigration, like Confederate statues, like, the NFL, kneeling or standing for the anthem. I mean, he did run on that stuff. I think what we're trying to understand is, do you think that helped or hurt in Virginia for this race?
Some of those issues, I think, helped Ed. And I mean, the press narrative is that he ran hard on those issues. I don't think that's accurate. Ed ran a good state-level policy race, right? He had 20 rational policy planks at the state level, but that got dwarfed by all the nationalization of the issues, right? And so the state message didn't come through. At the end, he started pivoting toward MS-13, the gang activity in Northern Virginia, the statues. Thomas Jefferson at UVA now has a shroud over his head, right? And so those issues were two-thirds Americans supported him on those issues, right? And then the press would come in and say, you all know what that means, right? That, Jefferson is, somehow considered evil now. And two-thirds of Americans don't agree with that.
Congressman, given how tough of a day it was across the board in Virginia, are you glad you weren't on the ballot yesterday?
If I were on the ballot, I would have nationalized everything, right? And so I would have run 100% on the Democrats increasing taxes by $10 trillion in their budget this year. The swamp is the spending. We can't get any spending cuts up here at all, and that's why the middle class tax cut isn't bigger. And so I would have run on those issues. I would have run on health care. Premiums are going up 40%. In our plan, I worked very hard with the Freedom Caucus to make sure prices would go down on health care. I voted no against our own team on that. And then I got to guess when the price finally started going down. So that's where I stand. I want health care costs for the average family back home to go down. I would have run across the board on all those federal issues that were 1 and 2 in the polls. And I think there's a win there. Easy. I think it's an easy win. The Democrats don't have any policy solutions right now.
You're okay that you had last night off. It's okay with you.
I'd rather not be running every 2 years. Yeah, maybe, the Senate looks like they have a cushy job, right? They go up every 6 years and get it wrong in between. So that's a nice slot if you can get it.
I'm sure they'll love hearing that. Congressman Bratt, we appreciate it this morning.
No,
Thank
thanks,
you.
you guys. You bet. Thanks.